the big thing that's changed since last March is you're swimming for the men now.
Yes, yeah.
As a man swimming with men. What a surprise.
It crazy. I know. Yeah.
How'd that go? That transition, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been awesome. I love the guys on the team. It's been a really cool experience for me. Just spending time with them, seeing how it works, I guess. So
I hear you. I think I told you when we had that brief chat last March. My oldest competed on his town swim team simultaneously with the high school swim team, and my late wife got a shirt that said, "If I only have one day left to live, I hope it's at a swim meet because swim meets last forever."
The classic.
You and Skylar, though, inspired me, and Leah too. I have joined the local swim organization. It's an aquatic center, and it's the best workout I've ever had. So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's I love swimming. I think even though like I'm graduating and I'll sort of be done competitively this year, like I'll probably just keep doing it for the rest of my life.
Do you think you'll be working towards other swimming championships, like maybe, I don't know, there's this thing called the Olympics?
No. Pretty much ready to be done competing.
Just want to swim for fun.
Month. Yeah. I'm excited to explore other kinds of fitness and live my life as a NARP. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but
I haven't had anyone use that term in a long time. My kid's been in college now and not swimming competitively. So why don't you tell people who are watching this, what is NARP?
Non-athletic regular person.
Right.
It's a term of endearment. It's
No, I know. That's what my oldest is now. He's a grad student and graduates in June from University of Chicago, where my oldest daughter also doesn't compete but just attends. Tell me about the overall reaction to your New York Times essay. How did people react?
Really positively, actually. I've gotten a lot of really, really lovely notes from people I know from sort of all stages of my life. Like I had someone reach out who I hadn't, spoken to since elementary school. So that was really sweet. And then I also have gotten some really lovely notes from just complete strangers. Actually, across the political spectrum, I had someone reach out to me and sort of say, like, I felt one type of way before I read this, and then I realized that I hadn't been giving it enough thought, and you really sort of changed my mind. And I was like, that's awesome, and that's exactly sort of what I was hoping to have happen. So that was cool.
When people say to me, why do you talk to conservatives or go on shows like Newsmax? I say, if I get one person, just one person, to open their mind and reconsider their bigoted, transphobic views, then I feel like I've done, good work. And that happened to me when I appeared on Newsmax. Not so much when I talked to Laura Ingraham. I caution you against that. Don't do that. As you saw in an email I sent, I think you probably saw it, there have been some views that were not so positive.
Yes. Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
I appreciate you sending them. I'd seen a couple, but not those two in particular. I think so far what I've seen is some of the backlash has fallen into two categories. The first is just like re-emphasizing a lot of articles like, this guy stinks at swimming. Like he got 79th out of 83, and I'm like, yes, I could have told you that myself. Like you don't need to remind me. Like I don't. I don't mind, and some of, but sort of in the world of like, okay, like like I knew I was coming in bottom of the pack, and I think that there's a lot of the sort of comments on that have been like, oh well, like a real man would want to win, or a real man would like want to care, and I'm like, you need to meet more men, like there are. I'm sorry, like not every man is the same, and there are so many good reasons to be an athlete, and winning is one of them, but it's not the only reason. Like, I love my sport and I get to race and I get better because the people around me are better than me. So yes, this is a good experience sort of in terms of gender, but it's also a really good experience in terms of just as a swimmer, as an athlete. And then the other sort of category of backlash has just been like, what a waste of talent. These people who would like to characterize me as a woman, which I am not, who are like, he's thrown his career away. And I think that it's really presumptuous to sort of assume that you know me better than I know myself, especially as a stranger, like to sort of say like, oh, like that surgery was permanent. How heartbreaking. Yes, I know. I am an adult capable of making rational, thought out decisions. And, I am honestly, like, I'm really sorry for whatever experiences that these people have had that make them, so hateful and so sort of unable to comprehend experiences outside their own.
Yeah, I never hear anyone complain about the healthy tissue lost when someone gets a nose job. You're throwing away healthy tissue. Well, yeah, but people want it, or they want a butt lift, or they want a breast reduction for, medical purposes because your shoulders are killing you. I just don't understand. I don't understand why people get in your face. When I was in Atlanta in March, I got to ask some of the competitive swimmers what they thought about swimming against someone like yourself. And the ones who aren't transphobes said, I like it because Leah and Iszac provide a competitive edge. I want to compete against someone so fast. It makes me a better swimmer. What do you think about that? Because I think there must have been a lot of positive energy that we didn't hear about at the NCAAs.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's exactly right. Like if you are there to compete, if you're there for, what I would consider to be the right reasons, like you're hoping to get better, and like I was far from the best swimmer on that pool deck. Leah was far from the best swimmer on that pool deck, right? Like there are a lot of really incredible athletes that, the half of the point of racing is to push one another and to get better, like I would say that I got a lot better at that meet racing those girls, right? It goes both ways. And so I think like, yeah, that is the true spirit of athletics more than anything else, is sort of, yes, competition, but mutuality.
I got the honor of meeting your family and the supporters from Yale. What does it mean to have those folks cheering for you and to have strangers cheering for you?
It was pretty cool. I'm really, really grateful for my family and the support they've given me, for my friends, my teammates, and then also just, with the article and last year, just like a lot of the love online. So I choose to focus on.
And then there's the converse of someone like your friend getting booed or hissed or mistreated, people protesting. I can't imagine what that was like. I mean, I can imagine what it was like because I had someone get in my face about using the women's bathroom. I had people outside, treat me negatively because I'm transgender and I'm just doing my job. I mean, so were you. So was Leah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about, as a human being, what it's like to face that kind of in your face, in your ears discrimination?
Yeah, I mean, there's no sort of nice way to put it. Like it sucks, right? Like it's never going to be a positive experience. But it's also, what I sort of try and remember, what I try and live by is like, you can't respond to hate with hate. That is never going to be productive. And so what I try and do is find, compassion. I say, okay, like you are saying this to me for a reason. And I am so sorry that like whatever your life whatever has happened in your life that has led you to this point where you think that it's okay to say something like that to someone, and B, that, you know, your response to what can be a really tough and horrible and unjust world is like, oh, I should add to this. You know, like that is for me something that I'm like, that's not ever going to be my answer. In the world of like sort of really messed up things to say to someone. Like, I had someone comment on my Instagram post, like literally like, oh, I wonder if you were molested as a child. And I was like, first of all, that is so disrespectful to survivors, you know, and like that is, you know, a completely unrelated thing. And second, like, I'm so sorry that you think that that's okay to say to someone, you know, that people have treated you in a way that you're like, yeah, that's a normal thing to say.
And then you block them, I hope.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So you hear like an old soul. Where did you learn this compassion? Is this something Skylar's taught you? Is it your family? Is it your schooling? How did you learn to be such a compassionate young man?
I think all of the above, right? I think it is absolutely been, you know, Skylar's advice on sort of how to handle these things. It's been how I grew up as a person, you know, like my parents always have sort of instilled a level of like kindness, compassion, thoughtfulness. And I think it, you know, in an ideal world derives naturally from sport, from teamwork, right? Like, you learn how to say like, yeah, we fundamentally disagree, but let's get something done together. Let's find common ground. Yeah.
Being trans, I can skip all the questions cisgender reporters ask you, which, you know, annoy the fuck out of me too. But there is one question about your past that it's not your essay that I want to ask about, because it seems to be a common thread. When did you know? How young were you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's actually sort of one that is a little convoluted for me.
Okay. Your mileage may vary. Everyone's different.
Yeah, true. I mean, I think part of it is tough because my memory is just bad, so I don't remember all that much. But the first time I verbalized it was at 14, to my mom, and you know, the climate was different. I was young. I was a teenager, and I was not ready to sort of advocate for myself in that way. You know, that I would have needed to. I think like I knew, I was certain, you know, and there was no doubt in my mind, right? You know, I think people are like, oh, kids are too young to know. No, you know, like it's we're certain.
Yeah, it's not the
but I
same
wasn't
as
ready to.
Go ahead, please finish.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I wasn't ready to sort of advocate for myself, and so ended up, you know, taking a step back from it. Needed a couple more years to get back in touch with myself.
Right.
But that's my story, and that's not true
Right.
for everyone. And you know, it doesn't diminish the certainty of that.
No, and just because you verbalize it at 14 doesn't mean you'll first realize it at 14. You had either feelings or understandings or questions, probably for years.
Absolutely.
And when people compare, you know, cis people compare knowing your gender identity to like, oh, I want to be a lawnmower, I want to be a rocket ship or an astronaut. It's not the same thing as gender identity. And what I really wonder is, how are we going to get these people on board? I really don't know. I often think, well, we can only hope that they die and they haven't infected their kids, and maybe their kids can be reached, because it just seems like there's a whole generation of people, Nancy Hogshead Makar, Martina Navratilova, who have absolutely no way back to reality, that you're a man, that I'm a woman, and that it's completely okay for you to compete with men, and for Leah to compete with women, and for me to use a ladies' room, and for you to use a men's room. I just don't see how they can get to where we are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, you know, maybe it's the eternal optimist in me that doesn't want to sort of let go of people like that. But I think that there's something visceral, right? Like if we are approaching this with sort of, open arms, saying, okay, like let's invite each other in, let's see where you're standing, right? Like, there's something visceral and uncomfortable that I think cis people react to, where they're like, oh my God, like I can't imagine wanting to do that to my body, Great. That's a great start, because now you're understanding exactly how we feel pre-transition. And I think that maybe is an argument that can sort of pull people in, like say, like, yes, like, validate the emotions, right? Like it is for someone who is a woman, it is a horrifying thing to deal with testosterone puberty, right? Okay. And it actually doesn't matter if that person is a cis woman or a trans woman, right? It's an uncomfortable thought either way. And so we say, okay, that's your connection, right? And, for someone who identifies as non-binary, like the idea of sort of strong expressions of gender can maybe, and there's a whole spectrum of non-binary identity.
Sure.
I'm not saying that there's,
No,
any one right way to do it, but like, like I think that there's a connection in human emotion that can be found. And then you sort of say, like, with empathy, with sort of trying to understand other perspectives, like this is how we move forward.
There were 5 years early in my transition where I did not want to be trans. I took testosterone. I wore a binder. I told my wife, I said, I can't breathe in this thing. And she says, breathing's overrated. I was a 44 double D, and I did not want people to see or suspect that I might be a woman. Can you tell me about your binder experience? Was it a godsend or was it a pain in the ass?
For me, it was a godsend. It was really powerful. I think, like, I wrote about it a little bit, I think, in my essay.
Mm-hmm.
But
saying your chest flat,
like
yeah,
like it was really almost magical. And yeah, I mean, they're uncomfortable to wear. No one's no one's advocating for the comfort of binders, but
the net effect is
it was worth it. And I was really fortunate to be able to get in for surgery before I got back to school, and so I wasn't having to deal with years and years of wearing a binder, which many trans people do, just because of the restrictions of access to care. But yeah, they were magic for me.
Last fall, I had to go to a couple of rounds with a famous detransitioner, infamous in my opinion, Chloe Cole, who realized a year after having her top surgery that she wanted to breastfeed. So she's now being courted by the right, goes to courthouses, state houses, wherever they'll fly her to give her a speech about castration and chopping off of breasts. What do we do in terms of making people understand that this is not just gender affirming surgery, this is life affirming surgery? Can you talk to me a little bit about that connection?
Yeah, I can try. I think the first thing to note is like how rare detransition is, and how often detransition is actually caused by external factors like reception from, employers, friends, family. I think that there's nuance there. Do I believe that regret exists? Absolutely.
In every surgery.
Right? Exactly. And I think that, I think I can only speak sort of about my experience, but for me, like, even for the years of my life where I was, 16, 17, 18, so, becoming an adult and, at that time identifying as a woman, like the idea of pregnancy, of breastfeeding, of all of those things were horrific. Like those were nightmare scenarios for me. And I remember sort of telling my parents, I was like, I'm so sorry, like you're gonna have to source your grandkids elsewhere. Like I'm not gonna be the one
Are you an only child?
that. I'm not. I have a younger sister, so I was like,
Oh.
you should focus on her. But
That's right. I met her. She's wonderful.
so yeah. So I mean, it was that. It was, and then sort of even on a more serious note, like I was like, I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be dead by 30, and so it doesn't matter. Which is heavy, and I'm really glad to say that I absolutely don't feel that way anymore.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because like transition has been so life affirming. Like I do want kids, I do want a family, and the reality of like, oh, like there's alternatives to that process, to like, and I think actually sort of taking a step back here and clarifying, because like, I believe that there are probably cis women who are horrified by the thought of pregnancy and breastfeeding, who still want kids, and there's options for that too.
Right.
Right? Like adoption, fostering, right? These are all excellent options. I think not having kids is a great option if you don't want kids. But I think what I'm sort of hoping to clarify here is like the idea of motherhood fundamentally was uncomfortable to me, and I'm actually quite excited about the idea of fatherhood. And
That's
so like
great.
that is it's a cool sort of note that I'm like, oh, like, okay, like I can I can imagine this. So I don't know, that was a little
Conversely,
bit roundabout,
no,
but
no, it's not. I'm still dad to my kids, but after their mother died, I didn't ever try. When people called me mom, I'd say, actually, no, their mother's died. I'm their dad. I'm transgender. And that process of coming out to the cashier and the guy taking your money at the bank, it got to be really, annoying. But as time went by, I realized society expects more of a woman who's a single parent than it does of a man who's a single parent. And I realized I may not be their mom, but I'm doing the job of mom. I am momming, and I do a pretty good job of it, to be honest. But that whole idea of motherhood was never something that was ever in the cards for me. I had to learn the importance and the significance and the value. It's the best, hardest job I've ever had. Let me ask you about, since you mentioned you might want to be a father someday, is there someone in your life who might be that partner?
As of right now, I am simply finishing up college and focusing on other things.
Got it. Okay. Hey, had to ask. I met my beloved in college, my senior year. So just be on the lookout.
Noted.
What's it like at Yale, just taking classes and being Iszak Henig, I have a little bit of recognition to this because I was a child actor. So wherever I went, I was Dawn Ennis. Everyone knew Dawn Ennis was the actor in commercials and stuff. And then I became Dawn Ennis, the transgender woman. So it's like people think they know you just because your name's in print or online. What's it like just being a regular Yale student? Do people treat you like a celebrity?
No. I think that's honestly one of the really cool things about Yale. It's one of the things that I remember thinking was really cool coming in, was like, there are so many really impressive people on this campus that, in a kind of a nice way, I'm just anyone else.
It's another guy, another dude.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think fundamentally, like, it sounds silly, especially given sort of, the events of the spring and the fact that I, was published in the New York Times, but like, I really am just sort of anyone else. And, I think, yeah, it's been nice. I have my friends here and they're like, hey man, that's cool. Like, what are we doing for lunch? Like it's nice. In a good way.
Well, I'll tell you, I think you're special. I think you're special because that's a word my mother used when I told her, when I came out to her and told her I was a girl. She says, no, you're not a girl. You're just special. She wasn't wrong. I think you're special too in your own way. Have you been able to come back? I mean, I guess over the Christmas break, you were able to go home to California, see family?
Yeah, I was able to see family, which was great.
And also they don't treat you like you're the king of Yale or anything. You're just Isaac, their kid, their son.
Yeah, yeah, no, very, very happily just coasting.
Got it. What's the message for all those kids who aren't lucky enough to live in a progressive town in California or to attend a progressive institution like Yale? We've got Oklahoma, we've got Texas, Florida, and there are, I think, 18 states in all that are coming after us. And you can't say to these folks, oh, why don't you just move? Because a lot of them don't have resources, or their families won't let them, or they're too young to, leave home. What do you tell those people
Yeah,
about what's going on?
yeah, I think I'm really of two minds about it. I think my first message is always going to be like, stay safe, take care of yourself, get what you need as best as you can. Stick it out, it'll get better. And I think like from a sort of protecting life, protecting safety, like, do what you need to do to keep yourself alive, to keep yourself safe as long as you can, until you have the opportunity to do something else. And then the other message is like, we're fighting, like there are so many people on the ground trying to make changes, trying to prevent bills from getting passed, trying to get resources to places that don't have them. Like I think it's something that I, want to continue to support. And so I think like, stay safe and, remember that there are others like us and that we're fighting.
Do you see yourself becoming a Skylar Baylor of an activist?
It's a good question. It's something I've thought about. I think I would love to, at least in part, do some more advocacy work, depending on what that looks like. I'm not 100% sure. But I do also want to sort of foster a career in other things. I'm looking at getting into renewable energy. Like climate change is something I'm really passionate about. And so I think, yes, but I don't anticipate it being a full-time thing.
And certainly we need activists for climate change as well, don't we? I mean, Greta can't do it all by herself.
Yeah.
Some people have made notes on the internet that it's funny how when you find out someone's anti-trans, what else they're against. They're against affirmative action. They're against democracy. They're against drag time story hour. And I wonder, politically, do you align with progressive politics, or is politics something that doesn't interest you, or are you conservative?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually funny. I was having this conversation with my girlfriend last night of like sort of
You said it. You said it. You have a girlfriend. Okay, good.
I will admit to it. Yes.
Thank you.
No,
I'll just let that slide. Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So we're sort of talking about political identity. She's a poli-sci major, so this is sort of her jam. And I think like politics does interest me in that it is incredibly relevant to my life, incredibly relevant to the lives of the people that I care deeply about. Like policy has widespread impacts. And so I think from that level, it is interesting to me. I'm a citizen who votes, like in that way, it's interesting to me. I think in terms of sort of political identity, generally progressive, sort of left leaning, I think, follows naturally from, how I was raised and how I was taught to view the world.
Okay.
And how I choose to view the world,
I was raised conservative. My very first election, I voted to re-elect Ronald Reagan. But then I moved out of my parents' house and their sphere of influence and discovered there was a whole world. But I will tell you that there are trans conservatives, the log cabin Republicans, and it's the leopard eat my face party. I wouldn't think anyone was going to have a leopard eat my face. You said before that, people like Skylar and your family and the fans supporting you meant a big deal. Can you tell me anything about how you've been supportive of Lia Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, I try and just be there for her as a friend, I think, and as a fellow competitor. I think that she has an awesome network as well. She's, seems to be well taken care of, and I just sort of try and do my small part of that. I didn't know her before literally about a year ago. So
you first met in March, right?
In January. Yeah.
January, sorry. Okay. Before at the Ivy Leagues, right?
Yeah. So we met January there was the Yale Penn Dartmouth tri-meet, and then again at Ivies, and then again at NCAAs.
My friend, trans athlete and journalist, she's a writer for Outsports, Carly Webb, got to see you all there. Mm-hmm. She covered that. And Carly's a huge fan. She asked me to give you a shout out because she manages a podcast and she'd love to have you on it. But I'll send details on that in the email.
She and I are chatting on Sunday, I believe. Actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we got connected.
That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. We used to do that show together, but I left out sports to pursue my master's. I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear it. Next Wednesday on the Transporter Room. I don't know if you're a Trekkie or not. She won't ask you about Star Trek if you don't follow it.
Loosely.
The thing that Carly said to me was, she said, you don't have to declare yourself an activist to be one. Just by living your truth, your authentic life, you are in essence an activist, because you're going against all those who say we are not who we are.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sentiment. I would like to believe that to be true. I think I probably wouldn't self-identify as an activist. I think
me neither. I call myself an advocate and a journalist.
Yeah, I think I'd opt for advocate athlete.
Advocate athlete. I like that. Yeah. Have you been in touch with the athlete ally people?
Yeah, I was actually really fortunate enough to do a panel for them over the summer, talking to some more D1 athletes, and that was a really cool experience. So very awesome. Open to connecting with them again. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, they're a great organization, and I would say that what you said earlier is true, that there's like a silent majority of people who basically support us, but just they aren't wasting their lives on Twitter making our lives miserable. They exist and they're out there, but they didn't realize that, I say when a cisgender person stands up for someone like us, it actually means more than when we stand up, because other people see that and say, oh, they don't even have skin in the game, and yet they're standing up for us.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting component of activism and how social change works. I think that is a phenomenon true of any sort of civil rights push. For better or for worse.
Got it. In terms of, we're almost wrapping up. In terms of your studies, where are you? Are you really close to graduation? Is it going to be June this year?
It is, yeah. Graduating in May. So
May, okay.
Fingers crossed it all gets done in time.
Well, as a grad student, I can sympathize. I'm a college professor for 4 years and a grad student for 2, and I'll tell you, whoo, boy, it's hard. How did that factor into your transition? Because you were studying as you were coming out and being who you are. As I said to other people, when I came out, coming out is hard enough, and it was 10 years ago, but coming out with the media spotlight on my face and reporters hiding in bushes outside my house did not make the transition go easy. So what was it like being a college student, having homework assignments? It isn't like you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I was having gender dysphoria. I couldn't get my assignment done in time.
Yeah, I was fortunate that some of the beginning of it was over my gap year. So that was kind of huge because I was working and I had some of the space that I needed. I mean, it's tough, it's definitely another thing sort of on the plate. But I don't think that it's been overwhelming in any way. Like it's been manageable.
Like everything else, you survived it.
Totally.
The question I ask at the end of every interview is, was there something you wanted to say, something that either didn't get into the Times or something you thought about when you said, well, I'm talking to Dawn Ennis, I want to make sure I mention this. Anything you want to add here? Because this is your platform, your place to say it.
It's a good question. My go-to last year was sort of, okay, like I'm really just, some guy. And that's true, and I did sort of make that point already of like, I am really no different than any other college athlete. But I also think that like, especially with the article and the learning that I've done since last year, like I would really like to call people in and ask people to say, if you can set aside a belief that you currently have and open your mind to trying something new, see if you can say, okay, what can I learn today? What can I open my mind to? That would be my ask, because I think the world just needs more empathy, more compassion in general.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Thank you, Isaac.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you.
And for taking the time.
Have fun with Carly on Wednesday. She's a hoot. And unlike me, who sits on the couch, well, I swim, but Carly's an actual athlete. So you'll have a lot to talk about.
I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Take care. Thanks
Awesome.
again.
Thank you so much.